Hey there, good evening. I hope you're doing well. I just thought I'd record this session. I'm just going to do a bit of a dive into developer documentation for Laravel. I used to be part of a team that actually did this quite well, and it's something I think I'm going to take with me going forward. And that's just this concept of having developer documentation as part of your application's repository. And what was so really awesome about that was, so in addition to obviously comments explaining why you're doing something, the developer documents were quite useful to capture the business domain of things. So almost like a middle layer between the business users and their business requirements and the actual practical implementation. And so it just kind of, I guess in a little bit more layman's terms, kind of just explain what the functions of certain models, why you've got certain services, maybe like a little bit of bespoke logic. I know, like as an example, there was a bit of a financial application I worked on. And so, what was quite useful, I think, to put in the developer documents was why there were certain things used as numerators and denominators and things like that. Just trying to, in my best, like dev speak, um, explain like why we actually use those, and if there was a change to denote that. um, and generally it was kind of like a, so I guess if you've got application documents for your end users that kind of explain how to use the app, maybe explain how to do, or at least how to utilize self-managed admin panels and things like that. Developer documents kind of just are useful to explain, um, in a strategic way, why something exists within the application. Because obviously, um, you might have an onboarding flow, and obviously, if you spend the time reading the code and jumping around between classes and methods and things, you can kind of find out, but what the code does. But if I give that to you in a little bit more of a distilled version as a docs, that's quite useful. So the developer docs were quite nice. It also, again, I think from a maintainability perspective, or at least an understanding perspective, it just asks you to consider explaining a feature to yourself in future, or to future devs that pick up the project, as if they're having a conversation with you. So that's kind of like the writing style. So it's a little bit of a substitute, and something that's basically facilitates that conversation without you necessarily being there. So that's the point of the developer documentation. It also becomes quite a nice tick box as part of the contribution guide. So in addition to making changes or adding a new feature, you've actually got to write developer documentation for it, right? And so this is why it was so useful, and why I still think it's a pretty good practice and something I want to take with me going forward. So what we did back there is we used I think a Vue or a JavaScript package called VitePress. I always say Vite, but VitePress, and it was really cool. Although it was probably a bit more of a JavaScript Vue framework that you kind of can incorporate into Laravel, and our CTO actually wrote a blog post on how to do that. So kudos to him for figuring it out. But I let my mind go a bit, and I was thinking, wow, it works so nice the way it works. I wonder if there's something like that for Laravel, something that's native to the ecosystem. Single composer, require and install, and it's done. And I actually didn't have to dig too far, and I actually came upon LaRecipe. I hope I'm pronouncing that correct. And it looks pretty cool. It also works similar to how I understood VitePress to work, which is folder and file based routing, which was pretty awesome. And files are Markdown, which is super cool for portability. So just by the by, so if you do something in LaRecipe, you can actually just should be able, in theory, to migrate to VitePress, because VitePress does exactly the same, uses Markdown files, and I'm assuming some kind of a compilation step that it's probably converts the Markdown to like whatever the render files are. That's, well, at the end of that, it's going to be HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, right? So this looks really cool. because I figured if this didn't exist, I was definitely going to take a crack at building my own package, because I've been looking for something in the ecosystem to take on. But like so many things, you've got this idea, and hey, somebody's done it before. So let's actually have a look at what this looks like and how difficult this is to get up and running on a new Laravel project. As usual, always good to do a little bit of a new Laravel project, because it gives you an opportunity to see what that's like again, right? You're so constantly working on established projects, you never really get into the scaffolding. All right, so LaRecipe. Let's do the new Laravel project, right? Laravel new project. There we go, installation, and oh wow, that's quite dark. Yeah, apologies, I didn't really think about lighting my side. That works, like we could do something like that. Ye old faithful load shedding. Well, I don't even think it's load shedding now, I just didn't think about lighting. Wow, that's quite distracting. You know what? Can I do something like, because that doesn't really help, does it? Anyways, alright, excuse the lighting. When we're in dark mode, guess what? I'm also in dark mode. Alright, cool, let's have a look. So why Laravel? That looks good. Is Composer? That looks good. Initial configuration. That looks good. I quite like using Sail. Just preference Docker. So we can do that example app, and then that should get us going. Okay, excellent. All right, so let me switch a little bit. So it looks like all you need to do is really run that command. So let's go over to that. Let's see, there I am. Okay, great. I'm actually in my folder, so all I need to do is hit this up now. Copy that. Paste it. Let's see what that does. I imagine it's still like, there we go. Really nice. Looks like it's chugging through what it needs to chug through, which is pretty flippin' awesome. And of course, just love containerization. Yeah, definitely want to play a bit more with Docker. There's a lot of interesting stuff with Docker. Just kind of like this concept again of having infrastructure as code. And yeah, I think there's a lot to learn in there. But as always, sometimes pressed for time. Yeah, so maybe let's see where this gets us. It looks very good. Okay, it's downloading Laravel. Got some good CLI output there. Yeah, so coming back to the dev docs, as a contribution, we actually had this almost like contribution checklist that has to accompany a pull request, and I'm working in a new team now, and I'm thinking that would be pretty useful too, especially when you want to establish like core engineering habits. So perhaps there's a paradigm or something that you're trying to introduce or enforce, and maybe you're noticing that it's not being enforced in the code. So as an example, maybe there always needs to be logging on any action or any change that happens, and it needs to be logged in a specific way, and there's kind of like an engineering standard, but obviously that standard's been communicated. But you're obviously finding that adoption of the standards is a bit of a challenge. And I find that those contribution checklists are quite good for that. So you actually make it a checklist, a check item that you need to tick and comply with to get your contribution actually accepted. And we had a couple of cool things in there. So like every new change had to be accompanied by some form of automated test contribution. And what eventually just happens is you start really training, and kind of, because it's a discipline, right? So you kind of just solidifying the discipline of doing the things that you want your teammates, and for that matter yourself, to do. And I actually think we'll definitely be doing that, I think, where I'm at, because yeah, it's been a thing where it's been difficult for standard and practice adoption in some respects. Um, so yeah, and yeah, so what was pretty cool about that? Yeah, and then what we also used to do is, so we had two checklists. So you've got a pull request checklist. If you're not doing trunk-based development, if you're doing main, staging, and develop, but we also used to have like a release checklist. So these are just things that, because it's just a thing, right? It's I wouldn't even say it's negligence. I just say that sometimes when you're under pressure, things tend to fall by the way. A good example recently, I added soft deletes in Laravel to a model's underlying database table, and I forgot something simple like using the soft deletes trait on the model. And it's something I've done so many times before, but it just it slips your mind. And I think it's typical things like this that's quite useful if you've got these checklists. It just kind of asks the engineer to go, okay, look, I've complied with this and that and that. And what I also found is you kind of tend to deliver and receive higher quality pull requests. So yeah, it's a good idea. But I see this thing is downloading a bit longer than I'd like. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to stop the recording here and then start once that is done, basically. Thanks so much. Sweet. And we're back. Okay, great. The basically just nothing fancy happened in the background. The download completed. Yeah, so we should have example app. Okay, really cool. Just heading over to the docs. Just want to see that I don't miss anything. You can change example app in the URL to anything you like. Just make sure the application's name only contains alphanumeric characters. Yeah, so installation might take several minutes after the project's been created. Okay, I'm just going to leave it as example app. Save some time. Okay, great. Okay, so here we go. So let us just refresh the, how does it do again? There we go, reload from disk. And there we go. Brand new, shiny Laravel application. Excelente. All right. Okay, so we can get our container up. So that'll be dot vendor. Oh, hang on. How does this work again? You first do composer install. So we've got some more installs. Okay, hang on. All right, so could not find composer.json. All right, that makes sense. Example app. Let's try that again. Composer install. And of course, I probably don't need to do that because that's why we've got. That's why we've got the. Oh wait, it's not .dev, right? It's vendor /bin /cell points for reading and -d. Just adding that in as an extra one because then it detaches the. Okay. Example app came with a few cool things. Alrighty then. So let's have a looky see, right? So if we go back to the browser, do we by chance have an app? Wow, amazing. That is really cool. All right, okay, obviously I've got my WSL sorted on my Windows machine. And so I've got doc installed. So all of those little niggles are already sorted. But outside of that, that was pretty flippin' easy. Okay, alrighty then. Okay, so let's think about this. So simple as that. Okay, great. Let's have a look at the documentation. Okay, cool. So, oh, yes, another thing I was thinking about as it was finished downloading. Obviously, with good documentation, I feel is a cornerstone of being a Laravel artisan, or at least wanting to call yourself a Laravel artisan. It's such a cornerstone thing in Laravel, and that is that the framework's got fantastic documentation. Looks good, reads good, and it's easy to find what you're looking for. And I think building in the ecosystem, yeah, make sure your applications, obviously it's not a hard fast rule, but it definitely shows off that you just kind of like want to adopt the artisan stuff. So I think docs or developer documentation is just, yeah, one of those things. All right, Markdown documentation, simply code-driven package. See an example. Okay, great. Features, Markdown support, Algolia and internal search. Nice. UI view component. Okay, search engine optimization support, Google Analytics. Wow, quite a lot of cool things in there. Oh, so Vue.js is... and then of course Tailwind. Chef's kiss. Alright, so let's have a look. Installation. If you're using Laravel 5.4, you will need to add the service provider manually. Otherwise, if you are on 5.5 and above, in other words, and kudos to Salim Haddad for building this, and they've been at it since since before I ever picked up Laravel. I'll say that as much, or actually PHP or coding in general. Alright, so let's hit this. So we're going to take that composer, require binary torch LaRecipe, install composer, and then we're going to do the install. Alright, so let's head back to the IDE. We are still inside the application, so let's do the composer. Oh, you know what that's? Oh, that actually works. Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, you know what I want to do? Because as far as I know now, I wonder, I might be confusing something we set up, but can I do sail bash? Yeah, okay, so that just basically gets you a terminal on the container on Docker, which is pretty cool. Alright, so let's try that again. Because obviously the Docker container's got all the right dependencies and things. So as you can see now, it's actually installing where previously I wasn't inside my container, I was just on my Linux subsystem, and so it wouldn't have been able to do that. Alright, so next up we're going to do PHP artisan install. Wow, that was quick. That was so quick, I don't think we even saw the output. Amazing. Docs folder created. Okay, this is pretty awesome. But you know what they say, you can 10 minutes, wait, 3 hours of debugging can save you 10 minutes of reading the documentation. So let's maybe just go back to the documentation for a bit. All right, cool. So once you've basically updated that, this is using Valet, but obviously we're already got our container running, so we should just be able to go to /docs. Let's have a look and see. /docs. Ha! My word, that is cool. So I have I have officially spoken more in this video than it actually took to just scaffold this in. And what I really like about this is it looks really easy to integrate, even if you've got an established app. I mean, it's literally just a composer, require, and install, and there you go. You got routes set up that basically does this. I mean, obviously, if you don't already use those routes. But yeah, let's just quickly have a look, see what you can click on. Okay, cool. It's got a collapsible navbar to start with. Okay, sweet. Okay, fantastic. Write something cool. Okay, sweet. Let's do this. All right. So going back to the IDE, I mentioned that there's now okay. So under resources, there's docs. All right, resources. Maybe we must just let's see. Docs folder created under resource docs. I am having a look for that, but I'm not seeing it. So most likely it is there. Index resource docs 1.0. Maybe I think it might just be yeah, there we go. It's just the subsystem that couldn't handle that speed. Alright, so we've got index and we've got overview. We've got the overview itself, and as you can see, it's just plain markdown, which is awesome, right? I think that was also something that was quite useful of writing markdown documentation. It copies quite nicely into Slack, I remember specifically. So one of the docs that was also really good to obviously have if you don't have it already is a release notes doc. So basically just where you version. I mean, even if you aren't like doing semantic versioning or anything weird or fancy like that, it's a quite nice little tool to communicate. I remember with our delivery manager, product owner, product manager, we used to like have a section like, you know, what needs to be staged, what is staged, and what has recently been released. So that was quite a nice little doc to have. And if you write it in Markdown, obviously it's quite portable, so you can take it wherever you want to. So let's try something like test this works. Okay, so I just save that. And then let's transition over to the browser. Okay, so hot reload, but if I'd press F5, there we go. Bob's your uncle. How cool is that? Fantastic. Let's see what else we can find, because I mean this is so cool. There you go. So routing, a new configuration file, config LaRecipe, in which you can find various options to change configurations. By default assumes that you want to use it for creating documentation. For that, the default route is set to /docs. Moreover, you can set the default route, default path of your Markdown docs. By default, it assumes /resource docs. Okay, so let's try and change something. What I quite preferred in terms of where our docs were located was they were actually located in the root directory, which is something I would probably also want for a project that I'm doing. So let's move that to the root of our directory. Okay, so now we've got docs there. Excellent. So they mentioned a config file, which of course I wonder why it's having trouble just indexing stuff from the subsystem. Anyways, maybe just a little PHP. Oh, you know why? Because I don't have this folder open. I've got a parental folder open. So let me actually see if I can I open this? Open in? No. Okay, actually that's a good question. We'll sort it out later. Anyways. Okay, so LaRecipe, so docs is the root. So it should just be able to do that. And let us go and have a look and see in the browser if that works. If I refresh here, yeah, it still renders. That's beautiful, man. How easy was that config update? Okay, so you can add some middleware. So maybe we got like something we want to add middleware where only, let's say our company's users with our company's domain name and their email address may only access the docs or something like that. We could do that if we wanted to write custom middleware. We can change what we land on. Let's land on index. See what happens if we do that. Refresh. Okay, interesting. If I do, is there an index? It looks like it. Okay, landing. Maybe I just misunderstood. Oh, hang on. Okay, now that works. Alright, okay, so maybe I must just take a step back. Maybe not understanding it correctly. Okay, documentation version. Oh my word, they thought about versioning. Oh, that's so cool. So I mean, if you wanted to write API documentation, which I haven't done yet, but if you wanted to, maybe that's like you could actually version. Wow, that's cool. Yeah, because I mean, if we look at the directory structure of the docs, you've basically got docs, and then you've got the version of the docs, which is pretty cool. Flip, man. I'm really like, that's awesome. You may specify and set the versions and the default latest one of your documentation. Oh my word, look at that. So at the top right, got the drop down there if you want to do different versions. Oh, that's cool. Alright, so we're going back. What other settings do we have? These options configure the additional behaviors of your documentation, where you can limit the access to only authenticated users in your system. It is false initially so that guests can view your docs. Oh, sweet. Okay, yeah, of course. So auth isn't required. But if you do have auth, you can make that true, and then you've got to be logged in. Okay, that's quite cool. Middleware can be defined if auth is set to false. For example, if you want all users to be able to access your docs, use web middleware. If you want just auth users, use auth middleware, or make your own middleware to handle who can see your docs. Don't forget to use gates for more granular control. Okay, very cool. Cache. Okay. Obviously, rendering Markdown at the back end is costly, especially if the rendered files are massive. Thankfully, caching is considered as a good option to speed up your app when having high traffic. Caching period unit minutes. Okay, that's very cool. Search. Here you can. Here you can add configuration. The search functionality of your docs. You can choose the default engine of your search from the list of available. However, you can also disable the search visibility. Supported search engines, Algolia and internal. Alright, so let's do true. Internal. And let's go back and see what that does. So there's a little search bar. If I click on that, oh, you can click search. Alright, let's maybe just go. I'm just curious. Let's maybe add like overview test 1. Then we can do test 2. I like a test 1. And looking at this, so we can do test 1, and then let's just go chicken. Okay, because I think if I just quickly read this, so basically if you use internal, it indexes H2 and H3, so that should be what we be able to search for. So if we refresh over here, which we just did, okay, transition back, and I do something like chicken, no results found. There's probably something else I need to do, But I tell you what, I'm not going to get too hung up on that now. I'm going to just leave this as true. Maybe we read that in the docs just now to actually get into that. Appearance, code theme. Oh, that's sweet. Okay, so, oh, this is so good. So this is how little tweaks you can do for like, oh, that's cool. How it basically interprets things from your markdown. So if you've got code blocks, it's going to do dark theme. That's quite cool. Or at least on the face we got that primary color. Does my IDE have something? So what happens if we make that, what's that, 88888, okay, so I probably, oh, hang on, that actually worked. Okay, sorry, I'm just my eyes are flitting across. Okay, so there's some cool theme, SEO configuration. You can set the author, the description keywords, also the LaRecipe by default sets canonical links to view page links automatically. Forum. Giving a chance to users to post their questions or feedback directly on your docs. It's a pretty nice way to engage with them more. However, you can also disable this forum visibility. Supported service. Discuss. Okay. Components and packages. It directly will be. Sure, that's cool. Okay, so not too hectic. Actually, quite cool. Nice and light. I just want to see. Okay, let's go read the docs because I'm getting into that, like get hands on versus like actually just reading the documentation. All right, so here we go. There's just a couple of things. There's a versioning. Here's the settings. Cache. Okay. Also very cool how the docs also kind of like mirror the doc blocks in the config file, which is awesome. There's some cohesion there, which is quite nice. Okay. And those were basically the things we chatted about now, which is quite cool. Okay, so upgrading. We're just like, you know, rocking it out there. Just seeing some stuff. That's cool. Okay, so let's have a look. Markdown support. Markdown elements automatically pass into normal HTML. Oh, that's pretty cool. So if we, okay, oh, I see. All right. Okay, sweet. Okay, cool. We've put images in. You can do that too. So you can just basically see what these things render out of like a vanilla install. And so they, oh, beautiful. Look at that table, man. That's gorgeous. Oh wow! Look at these things. Yes, that's beautiful. Really nice little components that render from your Markdown. Love it. Let's have a look at the view components, built-in components. If you don't like the idea of mixing view components with Markdown, remember that this feature is optional. Oh, cool. So how does this work? Because LaRecipe renders the documentation in the back end, Laravel application, it's pretty cool to leverage custom Vue.js. Yeah, pretty awesome. Okay, so we've got buttons, success button, default button. That is pretty damn cool. So what is it saying? If you don't like the idea of mixing view components with Markdown, this feature is optional. So in other words, I got a feeling I can literally copy this because it's probably baked-in components. Okay, so I'm just going to wing this, right? So we know that we've got this page. First section, test this works. Okay, so I'm going to go drop that little button in there. So that's the overview page. There's the view component. That is so cool. Okay, so it actually gives you a couple of like additional, so in addition to obviously having the Markdown rendered and interpreted in the way that it's kind of like thematically or themed it out, you can actually use its like view components. Okay, that's pretty sweet. And obviously, like they mentioned the docs, if you don't like this, it's optional. You don't have to do it, and you can obviously enforce your standards. But yeah, I like Vue.js. It's pretty cool. So that's pretty nice. So you got like all these little things. Oh, that's so nice. You can probably add your own things into. That's so cool. Okay, authorization. You might check the current users like admin. Okay, just some chat about admin. So search. This was the one. Alright, Algolia internal. The internal engine can be very useful if you have a private documentation, since Algolia doc search is free only for open source projects. However, the internal engine has limited power compared to Algolia. Yeah, that makes sense. Enable search. You can enable search. Okay, available engines. You can choose the internal. You can also configure the indexable nodes so that they will appear in the search results. We highly recommend that you enable the cache when using internal search to get better performance. Okay, so we've got cache. There's the H2, H3. Okay, so that was basically all. So did I maybe just I possibly just missed some things. We'll go back to it just now. Maybe it was like cached or something. But one thing I did notice is obviously, even though I refresh, that this test 1 and test 2, they actually don't appear in the thing. But I'm probably not thinking about something, so we'll might still figure it out. Okay, cool. Going back to the docs, artisan commands. So there's the install docs command. A bit more complicated than our install command. However, you have to know its behavior of this command, what you expect from it. The workflow command is okay. So the published versions array in your config.larecipe. For each published version, LaRecipe will create the corresponding versions directory if it does not exist. After creating the directory, LaRecipe will create an index.md for the given version if it does not exist. And finally, LaRecipe will create an overview.md if it does not exist. I'm interested. What does that index actually do if you look at that index file? Oh, interesting. Okay, so if I do test one, and let's just paste that to like test one. Do that again. Test two. Save that. Back to our IDE. Refresh. Okay, that's cool. And if I search now and I go chicken, anything, no results found. Interesting, because we can see it there, right? Chicken. Yeah. Okay, still probably need to figure that out. Alright, back to the docs. Keyboard shortcuts. Toggle sidebar, toggle search. Scroll to the top, scroll to the bottom. Nice. View components. Ooh, yes. Yes, 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 yes. This is really cool. So you can literally prop name, options. Okay, that's so cool. So, cards, type, size. So if I do buttons, how does this, do you, I mean, as far as I know, I don't think you inspect these, because obviously if we go back to the view components, but you can see LaRecipe card, LaRecipe button. Alright, so that's probably how the view components work. It might actually be nice just to have the component name here, just in case you're unsure, but I think it might just also be self-evident, so that's probably why it's not in there. Alright, so let's, I just want to, okay, obviously they showed the demo with the view components. There's just some customization that you can do if you want different colors. Okay, I see, that's the point. Okay, so here's where you see the components. Okay, now to implement them. And then if you want a little bit more customization with your, this is how you can basically add them. Okay, that's really cool. Custom CSS and JavaScript. Huh, okay. Okay, that's cool. Sure, probably wouldn't do that, but personally, but it does give you that little bit of flexibility if you're into that. Custom views. Okay, okay. Dark theme. Separate package. Yeah, just because they know they they're peeps. Oh wait, there's more. Awesome, LaRecipe. Oh my word. Okay, so here are some actual examples of peeps. Ah, I see it could use a little bit of love. Some of these are not with us anymore. Package browser, beautiful blog. Okay. WooCommerce, fastest WooCommerce app signal. Oh, that's cool. And this one's just built with LaRecipe. Okay, well, how cool is that? I mean, if you just got your application up and hosted, and you got this installed, you could effectively have docs on the internet that are like marked down, maintained. You know what's really cool about that? I remember, I think one of the projects we had a couple of, maybe a year or more ago, we actually needed to migrate away from Notion. And what all the note keeping in these apps do is they allow you to export to Markdown, which might just, you know, allow you to quickly migrate to something that's owned by you, I guess. API docs. Okay. All right. I use LaRecipe sometimes to write docs for our products, services, and share the access with our developers. Here's an example of writing API docs in a nice human and readable way. Okay, cool. I think we mentioned earlier in the video, like maybe API docs is something you could do. Project tracking, yeah, that makes sense. Ah, that's cool. Okay, Flip. Thanks for joining me. I think we would have been together for about 40 minutes, but yeah, you saw how easy it is to install. We went through the docs, saw some customization. Yeah, I think for now I'm quite happy to kind of leave it there. So it's quite nice. It just basically does the whole thing there. I didn't quite figure out the search, but that's okay. Yeah, that's super cool. Cool, thanks. I think this was Salim Haddad's contribution. Really awesome, man. I think it's super cool. Alright, cool. Have a good day, week, whatever you're doing your side. Cheers.